My name is Dr. Brandon.a.dandrea. I work in independent oversight, and I am speaking here in a personal and professional capacity. I am not speaking on behalf of any Office of Inspector General or any agency. This video is not a tutorial on how to use ChatGPT. It is not about clever prompts. It is not about using AI to write emails or summarize documents faster. This is a bigger conversation. This is about the ethical use of artificial intelligence in oversight, because in the oversight world, independence is not optional. It is the mission. And if we are going to bring AI into that space, we need to do it carefully, responsibly, and with our eyes open. That is what this presentation is about. AI is moving faster than many oversight systems were developed to handle. Data moves quickly, automation moves faster, and the public expectations never slow down. So the question is not whether AI is useful. The real question is whether we can use it without weakening trust, judgment, or independence. And the fastest way to understand that pressure is to start with a very ordinary kind of bad day. Now let's go to the next slide and take a look, shall we? Here is a simple picture. It is Monday morning. You spill coffee on the way out the door. Your phone is already lighting up, and the day is behind schedule before it even starts. Then you get to work. The inbox is packed. Everything is marked urgent. You got a small team. The problem is your workload is not. Somewhere in that pile of contracts, grants, reports, or case files, there is one problem that actually matters. One bad decision, one weak control, one missed warning sign, and if nobody catches it, the cost may be real. Money, credibility, public trust. That is what oversight can feel like. Too much information, not enough time, not enough people, and a lot riding on the answer. For a long time, the default tool was the same one it has always been: human attention. Read it, sort it, compare it, flag it. Hope you did not miss anything important on page 137. That is the pressure. So when AI shows up, it gets attention fast, because on the surface it sounds like help. It promises speed, it promises scale, it promises relief, and sometimes it really can help. But that creates the real question: is AI going to support oversight in a meaningful way, or are we about to invite a very confident new problem into the room? That is the issue, not whether AI looks impressive, whether it can be used in a way that actually helps without damaging trust. That story may sound small, but it points to a much bigger environment. Now let us set the stage. Oversight is being squeezed from every direction. Staff is shrinking, expectations are rising, data is exploding, and through all of it, independence remains non-negotiable. That is the environment. We are being asked to do more, with fewer people, at greater speed, under closer scrutiny. That part is not new. What is new is the scale. The amount of information keeps growing, the pace keeps increasing, and the pressure to keep up does not go away. But one thing cannot move, and that is independence. Not for convenience, not for speed, not because a new tool looks impressive. That matters here because AI does not understand independence. It does not understand fairness. It does not understand ethics. It does not understand trust, because it processes patterns. It predicts language. It helps with tasks. Useful, yes, but it does not carry responsibility. We do. That is why people still matter in this work. Budgets will change, technology will change, workloads will change, but the mission does not change. and at the center of that mission is independence. That is not a feature of oversight, that is the foundation. And the first part of that environment is something every office already feels. Here is our first challenge, and it is the shrinking staff. All across Oversight, teams are being asked to carry heavy workloads with fewer people. Positions stay vacant. Hiring moves slowly. Retirements happen. Budgets tighten. But the work does not slow down. The cases still come in. The audits still need to be done. The reviews still need attention. The deadlines still show up right on time. That creates a real problem. When offices are stretched too thin, gaps begin to open. And in oversight, gaps matter because risk does not wait for ideal staffing. Fraud does not pause out of courtesy. Weak controls do not fix themselves. Problems grow where attention is thin. That is why an empty seat is not just a staffing issue. It can become a risk issue, a credibility issue, and eventually a trust issue. When something gets missed, the public does not usually ask how many vacancies an office had. They just know something important was not caught. That is the pressure we are all under. Fewer people, same mission, same responsibility, same expectation to get it right. So shrinking staff is not just an HR problem, it is a mission problem. Because when oversight capacity drops, exposure goes up. And when exposure increases, the space for mistakes, misconduct, and missed warning signs widens. That is the price of being stretched too thin, and at the same time, staffing gets thinner. The next challenge is rising expectations. When something goes wrong, nobody wants to wait. Not 6 months, not a year. They want it right now. The public wants answers. The media wants answers. Congress wants answers. They want to know what happened, who is responsible, what failed, and what is going to be done about it. That changes the pressure on oversight. It is no longer enough to find the truth. We are expected to find it, explain it, and do it quickly. That creates a very narrow lane. Move too slowly, and people lose confidence. Move too quickly and get it wrong, and people lose confidence. Either way, trust takes the hit. So this is not just a workload issue. It is a timing issue, a credibility issue, and a bandwidth issue. Smaller teams are working under bigger expectations. Deadlines keep getting shorter. The margin for error keeps getting smaller. That is where AI starts to look attractive, not because it replaces judgment, because it may help reduce the friction. It can help sort information faster. It can help organize large volumes of material. It can help teams get to the key questions sooner, but it still cannot make the hard calls. It cannot weigh responsibility. It cannot understand fairness. It cannot carry accountability. That part still belongs to people. So the challenge is not just speed, it is speed without losing trust. And in oversight today, both are part of the job. And even if these two pressures were not enough, but the volume itself has changed the job. The next issue is exploding data. Oversight teams are dealing with far more information than they were built to handle. Contracts, grants, emails, digital evidence, messages, records, logs. The volume keeps growing, and here is the hard truth. There is no realistic world where people can manually review all of it at scale. Years ago, oversight often meant boxes of files. Heavy, yes. Slow, yes. But still manageable. Now the boxes are gone. The information lives in servers, cloud storage, shared drives, chat platforms. digital records, and communication systems that never seem to stop producing more. So the problem is not just that there is more data, it is that the flow never really stops. That changes the job. We are no longer working through a stack. We are trying to make sense of a constant stream, and when too much information hits at once, two things happen. Important signals get buried, and people get tired. That is a dangerous combination, because when everything looks urgent, prioritization breaks down. When everything looks important, the truly important thing can disappear in the noise. That is the risk, not just having more data, missing the piece that actually matters. And this is why AI enters the conversation, not because it solves the problem by itself, because it may help teams sort faster, organize faster, and surface patterns that would otherwise stay hidden. But that leads to the real question: can AI help us find the signal in the noise, or will it just add one more layer of speed without clarity? That is the test. So before we go deeper, let me show you exactly where this conversation is headed. Let me make the goal of this session simple. This is not about turning anyone into an AI engineer. It is about giving oversight professionals a practical way to think about AI without getting buried in jargon, hype, or vendor smoke. So this session does four things. First, it gives a plain English overview of AI. No code, no technical theater, just enough to understand what the tool is, what it does well, and where it can get you into trouble. Second, it uses real-world examples, because this topic makes more sense when it leaves the abstract and runs into actual work, actual pressure, and actual consequences. Third, it offers an IGAI checklist, something practical, something usable, something that helps an office ask better questions before a tool gets adopted, trusted, or quietly overused. And finally, it leaves you with takeaways you can actually use, not someday, not after a 6-month strategy retreat. Soon, because the real issue is not whether you become an AI expert. The real issue is whether your office can use these tools without losing judgment, accountability, or trust. That is the point of this session. And honestly, if you take only one thing from this video, take the checklist. That is the part built for real life. With that roadmap in place, let us talk about what is actually changing for IGs. AI promises efficiency. That gets attention fast. Everyone wants to save time. Everyone wants to reduce workload. Everyone wants to move faster. Fair enough. But speed is not the same thing as sound judgment. And in oversight, that difference matters, because the environment is changing in 3 ways at once. There is more risk, there is less time, and AI keeps promising efficiency. That sounds helpful, sometimes it is, but efficiency by itself is not the mission. If a process moves faster but becomes less accountable, that is not progress. If a tool helps push out answers quickly but weakens review, independence, or judgment, that is not improvement. That is just failure with better marketing. This is the issue for IGs. The pressure to move faster is real. The appeal of automation is real, but independence is still non-negotiable. That part does not change. AI can help reduce friction. It can help sort, summarize, and organize. It can help teams move through information more efficiently. What it cannot do is decide what should matter most. It cannot carry accountability. It cannot protect independence. And it cannot own the consequences when something goes wrong. That part still belongs to people. So the real question is not whether AI can make a process faster, The question is whether it can support the mission without outrunning oversight, because in this field, efficiency without accountability is not a win. It is just faster failure. And to do that well, we need a plain English version of what AI actually is. So let us make this simple. What is AI in plain English? At its core, AI is pattern recognition at scale. It looks at large amounts of data and identifies relationships, repetitions, and signals that may matter. That sounds impressive, and sometimes it is. But here's the important part. AI does not think the way people think. It does not reason the way people reason. It does not understand context, duty, fairness, or intent. It finds patterns, it makes correlations, and then it produces an output based on what it has seen before. That is the basic flow. Data goes in, a model processes it, a result comes out. That result might be a prediction, a summary, a ranking, a flag, or a recommendation. But the output is only as good as the data and assumptions behind it. So if the data is weak, the output may be weak. If the data is biased, the output may be biased. If the data is incomplete, the output may point in the wrong direction with a lot of confidence. That matters in oversight, because an output may look polished and still be wrong. So the goal is not to treat AI like judgment. The goal is to understand it for what it is, a tool that learns from data, detects patterns, and generates outputs. Useful, yes, but only when people stay responsible for deciding what those outputs mean. Once that foundation is clear, we can talk honestly about where AI actually helps. Here is where AI can be genuinely useful. AI can flag anomalies. It can speed up reviews. It can summarize documents. And it can spot patterns across large data sets. That matters because oversight work often involves too much material for any one person to move through quickly. Contracts can run hundreds of pages. Invoices can hide small but important irregularities. Reports can bury the real issue under layers of routine language. A human reviewer may miss something important simply because the volume is too high. AI can help narrow the field. It can scan large amounts of information quickly. It can flag numbers that look out of place. It can identify wording that repeats in unusual ways. It can surface patterns that deserve a closer look. That is not magic. It is a tool helping people get to the part that matters faster. The same is true with document review. If you have emails, attachments, notes, and background material, you may not need every line at the start. You need the key themes, the recurring issues, the unusual signals, the parts worth a human follow-up. AI can help provide that first pass, but this is the important line. AI is an assistant. It is not a decision maker. It can help us see faster. It cannot judge for us. So the value of AI is not that it replaces oversight. The value is that it can shine a light into places that would otherwise take much longer to review. Then people do what people are supposed to do: ask questions, check sources, use judgment, and decide what the result actually means. That is the difference. That is where AI helps, and that is where oversight still stays human. But that only matters if we are just as clear about where the tool stops. Now let us talk about what AI cannot do. AI cannot make independent judgments. It can process information, it can recognize patterns, it can generate outputs, but it does not exercise judgment the way people do. It does not understand mission. It does not understand duty. It does not understand consequences. AI also cannot guarantee fairness. If the data is biased, the result may be biased. If the inputs are weak, the output may be weak. If the assumptions are flawed, the result may look polished and still be wrong. AI does not fix those problems. It often scales them. That is why fairness is still a human responsibility. AI also cannot replace accountability. You can automate part of a workflow. You cannot automate ownership. When a system fails, the tool does not answer for it. People do. That matters in oversight, because oversight is not just about processing information. It is about judgment, independence, and responsibility. AI cannot tell the difference between an innocent anomaly and intentional misconduct without human interpretation. It cannot weigh context the way a trained professional can, and it cannot decide what is fair, reasonable, or defensible. That part still belongs to us. So yes, AI can be useful. It can support the work. It can speed up parts of the process. It can help surface issues that deserve attention, but it cannot be the decision maker, because AI is not independent. People are, and that boundary leads straight to the question that oversight cannot ignore. Now here is the question that oversight cannot ignore. If AI helps do the work, who owns the decision? That is not a technical question, that is an oversight question. Because oversight is not built on speed alone, it is built on responsibility, independence, and trust. That means three things have to stay in the room: transparency, accountability, human review. People need to understand what was done, how it was done, and why it matters. Someone has to stand behind the decision. Someone has to answer for it if it is challenged. Someone has to apply judgment, context, and common sense. That someone is not the algorithm. An algorithm does not testify. It does not answer the press. It does not explain itself to the public. We do. That is why independence means we set the terms, not the vendor, not the tool, not the model. We decide what questions matter. We decide what evidence holds up. We decide what the result means. AI can assist the process. It cannot own the judgment. That is the line. And that is what independence looks like in practice. So now that we have covered what AI can do and what it cannot do, the next step is to see what happens when those principles meet the real world. The best way to test that question is to see what it looks like in real work. Now let us look at a real-world example. A contract review environment like GAO or GSA is exactly the kind of place where AI looks appealing. For years, contract review depended on people reading large volumes of material line by line. Slow work, necessary work, but increasingly hard to do at scale. As federal contracting grew, so did the volume. More vendors, more clauses, more invoices, more transactions, more opportunities for mistakes, abuse, or fraud to hide in plain sight. That is where AI started to help. It could scan large data sets quickly. It could flag unusual terms. It could identify payment anomalies. It could surface contracts that deserved a second look. That is the upside. Faster anomaly detection, broader scanning, more coverage in less time. But then came the downside. High false positives, too many low quality alerts, too many items that looked unusual but were harmless, too much time spent separating real issues from background noise. And that creates a familiar problem, alert fatigue. When everything gets flagged, the meaningful signal can get buried again, not because the tool is useless, because the tool still needs human judgment to sort relevance from distraction. That is the lesson. AI can help show us where to look. It cannot tell us what we are looking at. It cannot tell the difference between a typo, a harmless error, and intentional misconduct without human review. That part still belongs to people. So the right takeaway from this example is simple. AI highlights, humans decide. AI helps widen the beam. Oversight still has to interpret what the light lands on. A second example shows a different problem, and it is just as important. Now let us look at another example. Think about federal grant payments at agencies like DHS and HHS. These systems move enormous amounts of money: schools, hospitals, research programs, disaster relief, public health efforts. The workload is constant, the dollar amounts are huge, and the risk is real. So AI started to look useful as a triage tool. The idea was simple: use it to help sort transactions, flag the payments that appear higher risk, point auditors toward the places that deserve a closer look first. On paper, that makes sense, and at first it looked like progress. Reviews moved faster, manual workload dropped, teams could focus more attention on the transactions that looked most unusual. That is the upside. But then came the real problem. People started asking a very basic question: why was this payment flagged? And the answer was not clear. The model could produce a result, but it could not explain that result in a way that people could defend. That is where trouble starts in oversight. Because if a flag cannot be explained, it becomes hard to trust. And if it cannot be defended, it becomes hard to use. That does not just create a technical problem, it creates a credibility problem. Program managers start doubting the flags. Auditors become cautious. Stakeholders start asking whether the tool is helping or just creating confusion. That is the lesson in this case. AI can help with triage. It can help with prioritization. It can help direct attention, but it cannot become final judgment. If the reasoning cannot be explained, the result cannot carry the weight by itself. So the takeaway is simple. AI is a triage tool, not final judgment. And in oversight, if you cannot explain it, you cannot defend it. So after looking at both the promise and the problems, here is the tool I would want every office to use. Here it is, the checklist. Before an Inspector General office approves, adopts, or relies on an AI tool, these are the questions that should be asked first. Not after rollout, not after a bad headline. Before, first, data integrity. Where did the data come from? If the data is weak, the output may be weak. If the data is biased, the output may be biased. If the data is incomplete, the result may point you in the wrong direction with a very straight face. You cannot build trustworthy oversight on a shaky data foundation. Second, explainability. Can the results be explained in plain English? If a staffer asks why something was flagged, there should be an answer. If a stakeholder asks what the tool is doing, there should be an answer. If Congress asks why your office relied on it, there absolutely needs to be an answer. If it cannot be explained, it should not be trusted. Third, replicability. Can another auditor reproduce the result? If the same process cannot be repeated and checked, confidence drops fast. Oversight cannot run on mystery. It has to hold up when someone else follows the trail. Fourth, safeguards. Are independence and human review built in? AI should never be left to run loose and call that progress. Human review is not bureaucracy for its own sake. It is discipline. It is control. It is how oversight stays oversight. And fifth, accountability. Who owns the decision if the tool is wrong? because the answer cannot be the system did it. A process can be automated, responsibility cannot. Someone still has to stand behind the result. Someone still has to answer for it. Someone still has to own the consequences. That is the checklist. And the rule is simple. If your office cannot answer these 5 questions clearly, stop, reassess the tool, reassess the process, reassess the risk. This is not red tape. It is a safety net. It protects the work. It protects the office. And it protects trust before the hard questions arrive from somewhere else. That is why the checklist matters. It forces us to ask the tough questions early before the headlines ask them later. And even with a checklist, there are a few risks that always need to stay in view. AI comes with real risks. The first is bias in training data. If the data is biased, the results may be biased. If the data is incomplete, the output may be incomplete. And if the source data is weak, the tool may simply turn weak information into confident-looking results. In oversight, that is not a minor problem. Biased results do not just waste time. They can distort priorities, misdirect attention, and weaken trust in the process. The second risk is over-reliance on automation. When a tool is fast, convenient, and usually helpful, people can start treating it like it is right by default. That is dangerous. Oversight depends on questioning assumptions. It depends on challenging conclusions. It depends on professional skepticism. The moment a team stops asking whether the tool is wrong, the tool has too much power. The third risk is vendor overpromises. The demo looks polished. The claims sound bold. The accuracy numbers sound miraculous. But oversight is not a sales pitch. A tool that is oversold and underexplained creates trouble fast, especially when expectations rise faster than proof. And here is the biggest risk of all: blind trust. Not just bad data, not just false positives. Blind trust in a system people do not fully understand. Blind trust in outputs nobody can clearly explain. Blind trust in a tool that does not carry responsibility when something goes wrong. That is the line oversight cannot cross. AI may be powerful, it may be helpful, it may even be necessary in some environments, but the moment we stop questioning it, we stop doing oversight the way it is supposed to be done. The greatest risk is not bad data, it is blind trust, which is exactly why the oversight mindset has to stay sharper than the tool itself. Here is the oversight lens. Now, our job is not to build AI. Our job is to oversee it. We do not need to design the model. We do not need to write the code. We do not need to compete with the people selling the tool. That is not the mission. The mission is to make sure AI serves oversight, not the other way around. That means asking hard questions, setting the terms, defining the safeguards, and making sure independence stays intact. Because AI is powerful, but it is not independent. It does not understand fairness. It does not understand trust. It does not understand accountability. That part still belongs to us. The simplest way to think about it is this: AI is a flashlight, not autopilot. It can help illuminate a problem. It can help surface a pattern. It can help point attention in a useful direction, but it does not decide what matters most. It does not choose the mission, and it does not set the priorities. We do. That is what independence looks like in practice. We set the terms. We ask the questions. We decide what evidence matters. We decide when the tool helps and when it does not. The moment the tool starts setting the agenda, oversight starts losing control. That is why the role of an IG office is not to admire the technology. It is to keep the technology honest. AI can provide speed. Oversight provides discipline. AI can help with visibility. Independence provides trust. That is the relationship. We do not need to code it. We need to control how it is used. So if I had to boil all of this down, these are the points worth carrying forward. Here's what it all comes down to. AI is not a silver bullet. It will not magically fix oversight. It will not remove risk, and used carelessly, it can create new problems of its own. What it can do is reduce some of the burden. It can search faster. It can sort faster. It can help filter noise. It can flag what looks unusual. That matters, because every minute saved on repetitive work is a minute that can be spent on judgment, context, and follow-through. But this is the line to remember. AI reduces grunt work. It does not reduce accountability. We still own the findings. We still stand behind the report. We still protect independence, and we still answer for the result. That part does not change, because the moment a tool starts deciding what matters without human judgment, oversight starts losing its purpose. Our job is not just to move faster, it is to move wisely, to ask better questions, to challenge weak answers, to protect the integrity of the work even when the pressure is high. AI can process patterns. Only people can provide judgment, context, and responsibility. That is the difference, and that is the takeaway. AI may move faster, but only we can move wisely. And before I close, I want to leave you with a few questions that matter more than any single product or platform. I want to close with 3 reflection questions, not technical questions, but oversight questions. First, how will your office test AI responsibly? Every tool comes with promises. Every demo looks polished. Every vendor says the system will save time and improve results. Maybe it will, but responsible use starts with testing, not trusting. That means testing the tool against your data, your standards, and your mission. It means checking whether the results are accurate, explainable, and useful in the real world, not just in a sales presentation. Second, what safeguards are non-negotiable? Will human review always stay in the loop? Will explainability be required before adoption? Will independence remain protected no matter how convenient the tool appears? Those are not obstacles, they are guardrails. They are what keep oversight from drifting into blind trust. And third, how will you explain AI use to Congress or to the public? If someone asks why a case was flagged, what will your office say? If someone asks why a tool was trusted, what will your office say? If the answer is vague, overly technical, or impossible to defend, that is a warning sign. Because these are not just technology questions, they are trust questions. At the end of the day, AI is not the real story. Trust is, and public trust depends on whether these tools are used with discipline, transparency, and judgment. That is the challenge, and that is the opportunity. AI is a tool, because at the end of the day, everything comes back to one simple truth. AI is not independent. We are, and independence is still our mission. Just one more thing.